Okay. So the title of this presentation is how personal injury attorneys seeing only 3 cases a month lose over $250,000 a year due to the doctor's bad documentation. And it's sponsored by the Car Injury Doctors Network. I'm Dr. Paul May. A little bit about me, about this is where it's coming from. This is where this information is coming from. So I'm a personal injury continuing education instructor for chiropractors, personal injury attorneys, and medical providers. Past speaker at 3 chiropractic colleges, actually right there in St. Louis. I was a speaker at Logan College of Chiropractic. I've authored the book, How to Stop Unfair Bad Faith Lowball Offers. I've opened 77 chiropractic offices in 20 states, seeing over 600,000 patient visits. So we've seen a lot of personal injury cases. And the testimony that I did resulted in the largest personal injury civil suit in the county. I'll probably talk about that a little bit. We took, and the case is very similar to what's going on and has been going on for 20 years. We took a case that was offered nothing. The insurance companies were offered her nothing. There were 2 medical doctors that said she was normal. The attorney hired me. I explained all this material, and it made sense to the attorney. We took him to court, and we won a jury verdict. It went from 0 to the policy limit award on their particular situation was $110,000. You're going to see the information that made that happen. More importantly, you're going to kind of also see why attorneys are constantly getting lowball offers. And I'll just share with you up front, the number one reason for lowball offers has literally nothing to do with the quality of the attorney. It has everything to do with the bad documentation from a doctor. And you're going to see why here in just a second. And it's been like that for over 30 years that I've been teaching personal injury. As a matter of fact, you're going to see when we go through the documentation categories, there's a series of documentations for a standard, like low impact soft tissue spinal injury case, that when we do forensic case analysis, on average, 57% of the documentation is not even done. They didn't even do it. And they didn't know to do it. And the number one reason they didn't do it, because they weren't taught how to do it. So, and of course that turns into a bad situation and what happens is they turn the bad documentation into the attorney. The attorney typically does not know it's inadequate documentation and major components are missing because the attorney didn't go to chiropractic college or med school. And they assume, since the doctor's license, he knows everything. So then the attorney gets less than a 2-to-1 injury award. That's the first red flag, by the way, that I always tell attorneys, that's the first red flag. You know, you're dealing with a doctor that doesn't know how to document personal injury. Your injury award is 2-to-1 or less relative to medicals. That's like the number one telltale sign. If you don't know anything else, that's number one. Number 2 is the majority of cases that are presented in front of you. The primary diagnosis is sprain strain. So if those 2 things are happening a lot in your practice, there's like a 99.9% chance you have doctors who have not been educated in personal injury documentation, and they're the problem. So having said that, let's go ahead and get moving forward here of what we're talking about. We're actually going to put the case together. I'm going to literally take a common classic low impact soft tissue spinal injury case, and I'll share you what is commonly positive, what's commonly not being documented. But the single most important concept that I'm going to be going over is how to put the case together that determines the strength of the case and how to tell the story to win. So that's where we're headed. So let's get moving here. Let's come to an understanding first. These are the injury statistics based on the Insurance Research Council. And if you look at them, it all makes common sense. 80% of all car injuries are under 20 miles an hour. Most people aren't flying around at 60, 80 miles an hour. 2% of the population are involved in car accidents annually. So you can take your population, multiply times 2%. That's a lot of people. 87%. What's the number one injury? Is a soft tissue injury. 87% of a soft tissue injury. Only 32% have a disc injury. Now, why do I put that in there? is I know a lot of attorneys, they only will focus on a disc. Well, if you only focus on patients who have a positive disc with an MRI, you're going to be losing out on 2/3 of the cases. That case that I just referenced earlier did not have a disc, did not have a fracture, did not have a nerve injury. And I'll explain how this comes together. Now, if they do have a disc, it even gets way better. So only 16% have a nerve injury. Now, obviously, 10% is a mild concussion, and only 2% are fractures. So the purpose of showing this is there's a lot of soft tissue injury cases out there, and you'll kind of miss if you're just waiting around for the disc or the nerve injury. You'll miss 2/3 of the market. And moving forward, we'll come over here and say, this is the end game right here. The end game is, what is the documentation that we need to support the potential injury awards? Now, this is the injury award from the doctor's documentation. And obviously, it's the doctor's documentation that's going to determine 95% of the injury award. But these are the 4 categories we're going to pay a lot of attention to. Do we have the documentation? So in other words, when I won that case that I just shared with you earlier, it went from $0 to $110,000. It was all distributed. It wasn't one. In other words, she didn't get $110,000 for medicals. She didn't get $110,000 for impairment. It was a combination of all of these. And the largest, which is typically the largest in all cases, is the prognosis and need for future care, if it's a younger person, because they're going to need with a permanent impairment, because now they're going to need that care the rest of their life. That's where most of the money was in that case. That lady was 33 years old.